We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including several NHL trade rumors impacting a variety of teams. Today we're going to be looking at an article that suggests the Leafs and the Habs may actually be good trade partners. We'll analyze that and see what we think on that front. Plus, there is some speculation that the Oilers may have their eye on a young Anaheim Duck defender. We'll discuss how that might work out. Could Marco Rossi be an offer sheet candidate, or how are things going to play out between him and the Minnesota Wild? Plus, we have the latest on Erik Karlsson. We're going to look at a few comments from Frank Seravalli, as well as an Athletic article looking at a potential couple other landing spots as well. Plus, could NHL veteran Nick Backstrom be making a return to hockey, but not in the NHL? Plus, we have a signing in the Buffalo Sabres organization as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. We'll start with a couple of signings and then take a look at some trade talk and some rumors around the NHL. Another signing today avoiding arbitration. The Buffalo Sabres right-hand RFA defenseman Connor Timmins have come to terms on a new deal with a 2-year contract at $2.2 million. So as I mentioned, that's another case that had filed for arbitration on the player's side. That's been avoided, and they now have themselves a contract. So the Sabres have their RFA business taken care of now. So again, like we mentioned with the Islanders, they will get another buyout window here that'll kick in. But again, when you have those second buyout windows after all your arbitration business is taken care of, the main piece with that is it has to be a contract over $4 million. So we'll see. I'm not sure that we're going to see that, but if the Sabres wish to do so, they'll have some options here now. So Timmins put up 15 points in 68 games last year. That's to be honest, I'm a little surprised on the contract. I thought it was a little higher than I was expecting, but I guess with the cap rising and based on what some of these other players are getting on the blue line and right-hand defenders being as valuable as they are, obviously they felt that's where things fall. The next arbitration hearing case right now, if it makes it there, would be July 30th, and Winnipeg Jets and defenseman Dylan Sandberg. So hopefully in the next few days we hear about the Jets and Sandberg coming to terms to avoid that process. Now, as I mentioned, we also have another signing involving a longtime NHL veteran, except it's not in the NHL. It's expected that tomorrow we're going to get confirmation from the SHL with their team, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, called Brynas, Brynas, to sign longtime veteran Nicholas Backstrom, formerly of the Washington Capitals. Now, Backstrom, of course, played for this team when he was younger before he made the jump to the NHL and had a long, successful career with the Capitals, of course, being the longtime centerman of Alex Ovechkin, setting him up for many of his record-setting goals. So the 37-year-old is expected to sign a 1-year deal, I believe it's going to be in the Swedish League. It's probably going to be a scenario where he's not necessarily going to be an everyday player. I think this is kind of my take on it, is that it's a little bit of a retirement tour, if you will. And because really, if he could play every day and play at a high enough level, you think he'd want to play in the NHL, especially where Ovi's still playing. Washington could probably make use of him for sure. But, at this stage, with all the hip problems, he can still play. I just don't know that he can play at the level he's used to in the NHL. And like I said, on the 82-game schedule, it's quite grinding. So I suspect they're going to give him a lot of maintenance time and that he'll play, every so often or whatever. So we'll see what happens, but that is expected to be announced tomorrow. Now, a variety of NHL rumors around the league we want to take a look at. I want to take a look again at Marco Rossi and the Minnesota Wild. Some new comments from Frank Seravalli that I came across today about potential offer sheets. Frank says the chance of an offer sheet is pretty much non-existent in his opinion, and I tend to agree with him, and he's probably right here, saying essentially that he doesn't think teams are going to overpay enough on Rossi to the point that Minnesota wouldn't want to touch it. If you look at the compensation for RFAs for offer sheets, are they going to go above that $7 million level? Are they going to get to the point where they're going to be giving up multiple first-round picks or anything crazy? Probably not. As much as Rossi's a good player, I think there's a lot of teams that would be interested in having him. We know there's probably at least a half dozen that we've heard about throughout the offseason here that have had various levels of interest and had some conversations with Minnesota about potential trade. but obviously up to this point have not reached a consensus with Minnesota to pull the trigger. So for that reason, Sarah Valley doesn't think that an offer sheet is really a threat. I mean, if somebody comes along and offers them, $6-7 million, even though they may not really want to pay that, they're probably going to match it. Now, most offer sheets tend to be short 1 or 2 year contracts. And then from there, of course, they will hopefully the team will expect to re-sign them at a more reasonable deal afterwards, like you saw with Kotkaniemi, or what you're going to see with Holloway, Broberg, that kind of stuff, right? So unless somebody comes along and offers Rossi like 7 years and $10 million a year, $70 million or something, at that rate, Minnesota might be like, yeah, okay, we're not doing that. But I just don't see a scenario where that's going to happen. If you take a look at around the NHL, there's definitely teams out there that can come along and offer sheet Rossi, but are they really going to want to give that much that long term? I mean, yes, he had a nice season. He improved. Point totals went up. When the playoffs game is where the problem ran into, really between the two sides here, because he got demoted to the bottom 6, largely, and many believe that it's because of his size and stature, and that because of that, they are not probably convinced that he can have a big role in them having a successful playoff team. I really think that's what it boils down to. He's 5'9". He's a very skilled player, but he's not real big. And we know in the playoffs, it's a whole different animal. There's a lot more physicality. And we've seen, in some cases, I think it's fair to say, some highly skilled top 6, fairly elite level centermen kind of get pushed around in some cases and, have a hard time. Or even, in some cases, have a hard time making it through the regular season because of the wear and tear on their body being a smaller player. So I understand the reluctance from Minnesota, but at the same time, there is a lot of pushback from Rossi that, he feels that he doesn't want to sign a short-term contract here either, because he's worried after what happened in the playoffs that he's going to be pushed down the lineup, and then he's going to have a harder time hitting those point totals, and getting his next contract anywhere is going to be a challenge. They're all going to want to lowball him if Minnesota plays him in a different role, which is fair on his part too. Like, he's trying to make sure he gets paid as much. They're trying to make sure that their team is as strong as possible. So, because of all that, it's caused a major standstill here. So an offer sheet doesn't seem likely. And the problem as well is with the trade, Minnesota doesn't want to weaken their team. So they want a hockey trade. They don't want something that's going to be, a first round pick and a prospect. Earlier in the offseason, before we got to the draft and anything really too substantial happened, there was some talk that Minnesota might take a futures package as long as they were confident that they had another side piece to that lined up where they could flip that to another team and then get the player they want to come back that way. So it'd be like a 3-team deal. Well, that could still maybe happen, but it just seems a little bit less likely now. So you're more likely looking at a hockey trade. Like, I know Vancouver was one of the most common teams we've heard scouting Rossi throughout the offseason and that were interested. I mean, what would Vancouver offer Minnesota in a case for Rossi? I mean, for a hockey trade. I mean, Minnesota's got a lot of good young defensemen already, so I can't see there being a player like that. It's going to probably have to be another forward. Nils Höglander, I don't think that's going to get it done. Lekaramaki, again, maybe not established enough. I think they want a player that's going to probably be at least as established as he is. So that makes it difficult. And again, I think he could be a good fit in Vancouver, but what are they going to offer? And do they have anything that Minnesota really wants? That's the problem. So that's kind of where things stand. But if a team's going to step up and pay a price to trade for Rossi, it's going to have to be a young player that's probably a forward, either a center or a winger that's a little bit more physical, a little bit bigger, and plays a different style of game. So we'll see what happens. And I think the Kirill Kaprizov contract extension talks are also playing a role here as well. I think they're confident they're going to get that deal done. But until it's done, they don't want to be in a chance where they lose both players. So we'll see where that goes as well. Now, the Edmonton Oilers, there's a lots of speculation about the Oilers here around the rumor mill lately. This one here is a little bit different, but of course we know the D-core is probably going to be largely the same going into next year that they just finished with. I don't think we're going to see much change there. We've heard comments from Stan Bowman and other members of the Oilers organization suggesting that they're pretty confident and comfortable with their D going into next year, and I believe that's probably the case. But on a longer-term basis, they probably are fair to be looking at injecting a little bit of youth here, okay? They do have 4 of their top 7 D that are going to be on an expiring contract soon. You've got Jake Wallman, you got Matthias Ekholm, you got Troy Stetcher, and Brett Kulak. So, it's believed that they're wanting to extend Wallman and Ekholm. I wouldn't say that Kulak and Stetcher are goners. I don't think we can say that either. But they're going to take care of the other guys first and probably reevaluate those other 2 a little bit after. And they are linked to Olin Zellweger and Anaheim. Now, of course, Zellweger is a pretty good puck-moving skating defenseman. Obviously, him and a guy like Pavel Mintyukov were both defensemen out of Anaheim that were, from what we've heard, not necessarily thrilled with how the year kind of went as a whole. Of course, they're going to have a new coach for the coming year, so that could change how they're deployed as well. But we know that basically they were a little frustrated, I think, with their in and out of the lineup type of approach. Just feeling that they've earned more of a look to be consistently in the lineup every day and just get a more favorable slotting in the lineup and consistently in the lineup. So for Zellweger, it might make sense that the Oilers would see that as maybe an opportunity for the Ducks to move somebody, right? They've also added some veterans, and they do have a lot of interesting young D-men. Besides these 2 guys, you've also got Jackson Lacombe, who's really emerged there as well. And there's more in the system coming too. So ultimately, it wouldn't be shocking if the Ducks did move one of their young D here at some point, and I can see why a team like Edmonton would be interested. It's not the first time Zellweger's name has been brought up this offseason, so we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, I don't know what the Oilers would offer in a case like this. They don't have a ton of picks and prospects to really mess around with here, but if Anaheim is looking to move Zellweger, which is believed that at least they're remotely interested in, then the Edmonton Oilers could be a place that we see him go. Do want to touch on Erik Karlsson as well. Some comments from Frank Seravalli, as well as an Athletic article looking at his situation. Frank Seravalli mentions that the Carolina Hurricanes have really studied and investigated a lot of bringing Karlsson in as an addition here. Of course, they moved on from Brent Burns. They chose not to re-sign him. I believe Burns wasn't necessarily shown the door in Carolina. I think they talked to him about staying, but they did acknowledge the fact, same thing, I think went for Orlov, that if they were going to have to take less money and have a reduced role if they were going to stay. I don't know that Orlov really had any conversations. I know with Burns there was some. So obviously they brought in K'Andre Miller, different kind of defenseman, but certainly they got Shane Gostisbehere. But could there be an opportunity for the Canes to add more of a power play specialist, if you will? I think there is. That opportunity does exist there. They do have good cap flexibility, and Carolina just might end up being a really good landing spot for Erik Karlsson. Should they decide to push forward here? Obviously, like I said, Seravalli's comments don't surprise me. Out of all the things that Carolina could add, I can see that making a lot of sense. The Athletic article from Shanna Goldman also mentions a few teams, but again she also mentions the Hurricanes as a potential landing spot too, given their situation with the cap, and like I said, the fact that they don't necessarily have a clear high-end power play specialist on the back end. They have lots of good D. Obviously Miller not going to be that guy. He just comes in. You got Jacob Slavin. You got Gostisbehere who can be that guy. But again, Burns is gone. Orlov is gone. Chatfield's there. They have some guys that can move the puck. They have some guys that can help produce offense, but not to Erik Karlsson's level, nowhere near it. So Gostisbehere is the best they've got. So if they can upgrade there and have Gostisbehere be more of like a power play 2 guy, makes the team deeper and stronger, more of an offensive threat. And we know with Carolina, their biggest issue, especially in the playoffs, has been scoring goals. So they've made some big additions. They've changed their forwards groups up a little bit here. They have a good young core signed long term. is it time to add that defenseman? I mean, it wouldn't have to be a huge commitment. Carlson's only got this year and one more left. And, it does make sense. I mean, Shayna also mentions in the Athletic article that she thought Florida might be a potential landing spot, but after bringing back everybody, including Aaron Ekblad, that ship has sailed, so that's not really an option. He's, of course, been linked to returning to his former team, the Ottawa Senators, forever and a day. And I think the biggest thing there is Sens fans, from a nostalgia perspective, would love to see him come back, mainly due to, especially to the circumstances surrounding his departure, and of course the I don't know if I want to call it a feud, but the poor relationship with the old owner. Things really got messy there in Ottawa for a long time before the ownership change, and they lost a lot of good people, which the fan base would love to see. If they can come back, would be, like I said, just to have a better closure, from the fans' perspective and for the player's career. But again, they just acquired Jordan Spence. They have Nick Jensen. They have Artem Zub. You can make an argument that they should probably see what they have there first, and that maybe he doesn't exactly fit the timeline or, make the perfect sense for them right now. Now, in a year or two, either in the final year of his contract if something changes, or as a UFA after, could he sign a cheaper contract to maybe play out a year or two in Ottawa to finish his career? Yeah, maybe. Maybe the circumstances are different in a year or two. But for right now, I don't know that the stars are really aligned or make sense for that to happen. So Carolina does make a ton of sense. So we'll see if they continue to investigate and if there's any chance of pulling that off. Now, so there's also an article I've seen, came across, and I've seen a lot of chatter around about Montreal and Toronto maybe being trade partners. And the article was from a website called Heavy.com, and it suggests Mike Matheson trade to the Maple Leafs for a return of Simon Benoit and Nick Robertson and a third-round pick. And I'm like, okay. I just found it interesting. Obviously, from the Montreal perspective, this article references the fact that they acquired Noah Dobson, and with the decor that's structured the way it is, and Matheson is a piece that makes sense to try to move. That part I agree with, and that Toronto could be a good landing spot, and that Benoit, Robertson, and a third is a good return. So for starters, I can see Matheson being traded. I can see Robertson being traded. I wouldn't suspect that the Leafs would move Simon Benoit. I mean, he's not, the absolute untradeable person either. But, I think they like him. He's proven to be valuable. Played good for them last year. Had his moments like any player where he might have struggled a little bit here and there. But for the most part, I thought was good. He was good in the playoffs. They don't really have a reason to want to move Benoit. And to be honest, Matheson is a completely different type of defenseman. Matheson is a really, really, he's a strong skater, and his skating ability and moving the puck is what he's known for. Now, sometimes he can be a high-risk, high-reward type of defender in that sense, but Benoit's different. He's more of a stay-at-home type of physical defenseman. And, for your third pair, he's the makeup of what a lot of teams like on the third pair. And I think that Berube probably likes what he brings there. To move him out for a guy like Matheson, even if you think Matheson will play up higher in your lineup, if you look at what else they've got between Ekman-Larsson and Riley and Tanev and McCabe, Matheson to me just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, could Montreal move him? Absolutely. Does Toronto make any sense? No. Like I said, and for Benoit, I wouldn't rule out if the right trade came along that the Leafs got a big upgrade and they had to include him. I don't think they would hesitate. At the same time, I also don't think they're out there trying to trade him either. Nick Robertson, on the other hand, I can see him getting traded. He's one of the players waiting for arbitration hearing coming up in early August. And, again, if they're going to move him, I would hope they'd move him to a team where he could actually maybe get a consistent top six opportunity. And he's not going to get that in Montreal. They have their top line pretty much set with Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky. And then you've got some, potential for a number two center spot that's yet to be determined, but it could be Kirby Dach, for example. I think he'll get an opportunity. You got Laine, you got Demidov, like they don't really need another winger to play up there. So I just don't think for Robertson, I don't think it'd be a fair shake to really get the consistency he wants. So I don't think Montreal would be interested. Now, if they're going to move Matheson, they're going to want to do that ideally for that upgraded number 2 center spot. So I don't know. I seen some chatter about this article and this trade through social media. Checked it out. Wanted to weigh in. I can see Matheson being traded. I can see Robertson being traded, but not for each other. If they're going to move Matheson, it's going to be for number 2 center. And the Leafs can move Robertson for really a variety of things. I'm not really sure what the return would necessarily be there. It could be for another prospect. It could be for a pick. I don't know. They very well could hang on to him too until they sort out their forward group a little bit further. Because like we know that after losing Marner, they've added some other guys, but the guys they've added are not, I mean, they could be potentially could Michelli play on the top line? Yeah, I guess it's possible. But if they can find a stronger fit there, then they would probably prefer to do that and have Michelli play on the second or third line. Is Dakota Joshua a first-line guy or is he a bottom 6 guy? He's probably a bottom 6 guy. And you don't want to have guys come into a new team and to kind of overcast them into a bigger role that's too big for them. That's how they become fan bases whipping boys early if they don't have the success that they're expected to have. The expectation suddenly gets too high. So, do I like the players that Toronto brought in? Do I see them being good fits? Sure. But I don't know that we can definitively say that they have their top-line winger to play with Matthews and Nyes consistently. And if they can fake a trade for a more consistent higher-end player, that would be preferable. And then that would obviously create an opportunity for Robertson to maybe on the second or third line, but again, maybe he's included in that trade, right? So, if they can move Michelli down and keep Joshua on the bottom 6, I think they're a stronger, deeper team because of it. So, but again, it's not going to be easy to do because obviously they've been looking around. They've been linked to a ton of players and they haven't been able to pull off a deal just yet. Doesn't mean they won't eventually, but that's where things stand. So to me, I'll link this article down in the comments if you want to have a look at it. But I don't really think this is something that's very likely to see at all. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.